Hi, and welcome back to another episode of That's the V, a podcast about fashion people, and opportunities in the creative industry. Today's episode is a little bit of a wrap up from the fashion industry and what's happening currently. And I really want to try to make this podcast very much like interviews with people, but also news, of course. So, tea, of course. And I personally will talk about the things that caught my eye the most or that really just caught my attention. And I think there are things that people don't really talk about. I feel like, for example, right now it's Paris Fashion Week is happening or just happened, Men's Paris Fashion Week, Haute Couture Paris Fashion Week. So there's like all these fashion weeks happening, but like, what are the highlights of these events? For me personally, one of the things that really, really just I'm obsessed with, and I love when designers just really tell stories and like talk about or attach the history into their collections. So Jacquemus, I'm obsessed. Love him. His debut with La Palmière. I know I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but his last collection, Showcase in Paris, his closing piece was just stunning. If you haven't seen it already, I've reposted a bunch of videos and even made an actual post on the That's the V Instagram. And it's about this imagery with a model with one of her chest uncovered but covered with a glass, and it's just making like resemblance and honoring Pamela Picasso, which is Pablo Picasso's daughter and also a very amazing jeweler. So she made a story of her own, and it's just mimicking this photograph that she came out in, and that she was just very like edgy looking, and for him to use this iconic photograph to close his show at the Picasso, I believe it was the art exhibit in Paris. I know there's more to it, but it was just like the perfect poem to me. So that show, that's something that I think he did such a great job adding that factor into it. Another really, really, really cool one. So, if you didn't know, sometime last year, the royal jewels in the Louvre were stolen. It was like a whole fine jewelry heist, and it was like the crown jewels and all these antiques from I don't even know what century, but so Schiaparelli, one of my other favorite designers, they're definitely up there. Uh, they resembled and remade the crown jewels exactly like the ones that were stolen, and they had them put on. Teyana Taylor, the actress, show up to the show wearing them. So it was like the perfect marriage, I feel, of like introducing this piece into the collection and having her wear them and showcase them. I think it just made so much sense. Another perfect poem, if I can say. And then next, I'm going to talk about, I'll say my top four, because four is my lucky number. But Valentino's debut, rest in peace. Gosh, he was just iconic. And for this show to be the first after his passing in Paris, it's just insanity. With Alessandro Michel, I thought this was just such like an honor. I feel like it's so impactful because it's the first show after his passing. So for me, aside from the designs, because I think it's Valentino is just so classic and beautiful, but the way that this show was showcased and they had models in like these circular boxes with windows where all the spectators can see through and look at each design very lit up, very up closely, and then be able to see them on the runway, which was way darker. It just gave it such a contrast. And I know you can find so many examples of it if you just, search it. But that's something I wanted to talk about and point out because this design was from like the 20th century where people had to, uh, there's a name to this. It was called a Kaiser panorama. I might be butchering the name or the pronunciation, but it was basically like this circular box where people would sit and then like look into the little squares around the circular box and see motion pictures basically. So it was like the beginning of movies and before even shows were a thing or any television existed. That was just a form of entertainment, which I think is very interesting. I love when history is attached to collections. It just adds, I feel like, more value to it. And I love history. I'm a history nerd, so that's a fun fact. And last but not least, so many like great designers passed this like last year, from here to last year. Giorgio Armani, I was actually in Milan for his last show last year. And I mean, nobody knew he was going to pass, but I was there doing some photography. And it was for men's um, fashion show in Milan, Men's Milan Fashion Week. And it was just, I feel like having his collection again, like Valentino, being debuted after his passing. I think these collections are so impactful because it's like, okay, the creators of these brands are not here anymore. So it's like a heavy weight with the creative directors. For Giorgio Armani, though, it's very interesting. I literally just read and saw that his niece, Silvana Armani, she makes her debut, and she's the one that basically is taking care of the brand now and showcasing these designs. So she showcased the new collection in Paris for Haute Couture Fashion Week. And I mean, all I can say is that they were gorgeous. I mean, it wasn't, the show I saw was men's, so very different, but it's still like both Armani and Valentino are two Italian brands that I think are classic, iconic, and the actual like high end collections I feel like are pieces of a lifetime. I feel like if you're ever lucky enough to own one of those pieces, it's forever. It's a collections piece. They belong in a museum, basically. Um, but yeah, I think those are my top four news stories in the fashion world that I saw. It's just fashion month. So there's just so much. I feel like I've been feeling so overwhelmed. And like every day I'm literally waking up and just going on Instagram because I follow all these fashion brands and I'm just like constantly like the designer after another, a show after another. And that's just how it is during, like, I like to call it red carpet season, but from the Golden Globes until May 1st, I think, it's like non-stop fashion events, fashion weeks, and that's what's insane about the fashion industry. Like, there's so much. So, as mentioned before in my first episode, there's so much opportunity. And I can get into it again, but I'm not. You can go listen to that episode instead. But there's Paris, there's Milan, there's London, there's New York, of course, but there's also Miami. There's so much other things going on in the States too. I mean, I think nothing compares to Paris. I think Paris is top, but there's always a step to get closer to being more and more involved into the fashion industry. So, those are my top 4. I hope you learned something different today that you didn't know about the fashion industry or the current fashion weeks happening right now. And talking about fashion, I know today I'm more dressed up. I don't know if I will be so dressed up in all my episodes. I hope to be, but I feel like life gets in the way sometimes. But today I have an event, I have a restaurant launch, which I'm really excited about. So I took advantage of going to the event so I can pre record this episode before going and show it off because it's from a lovely friend's boutique called Clothing Stories, which all their pieces are one of a kind. Like, this set is just the details, the way it's made, that's all they have. All like very unique pieces. Ever since I found them, I was just like, I need to be your friend because I'm obsessed with your like style and collection and everything. So you can find it at clothingstories.com. I will tag their IG and their page and everything. And I mean, you can order online, or if you live in El Paso, Texas, you can go to their store. They have 2 locations now, which is so exciting. But yeah, so that's the V. I hope this was very eye opening, or some of the information I gave out. Until next time.